My sister mocked my simple lifestyle, shut me out of Christmas, saying, "We only need real family." I walked away, and Grandpa took steps that destroyed her. I'm Ethan, 32 years old, living in Denver, making a decent $180,000 a year. Sounds good, right? But you haven't heard about my family's outrageous spending habits. This isn't just about money. It's about years of family strife, public humiliation, and the most spectacular comeback you can imagine. Let me paint a picture of my childhood and explain why this retribution felt so incredibly earned. While my sister, Chloe, was out there competing in beauty pageants and dating famous athletes, I was the quiet kid, more focused on school, saving money, and building a real future. My parents, Thomas and Susan, made it crystal clear from day one who their golden child was and who was just taking up space. When Chloe turned 16, she got a brand new BMW, a $45,000 car, complete with a giant red bow. For a kid with no job, the entire neighborhood gathered to watch her shriek and jump around like she'd won the lottery. She plastered it all over social media, calling it the happiest day ever, praising her amazing parents. Me. When I turned 18, I got an old Honda Civic, 185,000 miles, that Dad bought from a coworker for $1,800. "It builds character," he said, while Chloe smirked in the background, probably already planning her next extravagant demand. I graduated summa cum laude with a 3.2 GPA, but also with $45,000 in student loans. I refused to ask my parents for help after seeing how they handled money requests. While studying finance, I worked 2 part-time jobs. One at a grocery store from 6 p.m. to midnight, and another at a local restaurant on weekends. Right after graduation, Chloe hit what she considered the ultimate jackpot. My parents, of course, acted like funding her lifestyle was just a normal part of being good parents, while treating my financial independence as some kind of character flaw. Chloe married Jason, a commercial real estate developer who supposedly pulled in over $420,000 a year. Now she lives in this massive 9-bedroom house in the most exclusive suburb, drives a Tesla Model S, and posts Instagram stories every other month from Cabo, Dubai, and the Maldives. Her social media became this carefully curated display of wealth that, honestly, made me embarrassed for her. Meanwhile, I was grinding 70-hour weeks, eating ramen for dinner, slowly chipping away at my debt like a responsible adult. Don't get me wrong, I've done very well for myself through hard work and smart decisions. I've got about $160,000 saved up. My loans are completely paid off, and I max out my 401k and IRA every year. I drive a reliable Toyota Camry and live in a nice but modest 2-bedroom apartment. I'm dating Olivia, a nurse practitioner who makes around $95,000. Olivia is down to earth, saves money, invests wisely. She represents everything Chloe isn't. And according to Chloe, I never missed an opportunity to take passive-aggressive shots at my lifestyle. She'd say things like, "Ethan, when are you going to get a real job that pays enough to actually enjoy life instead of just surviving?" Or, "Maybe if you spent less time obsessing over spreadsheets and more time networking with successful people, you'd understand how the world actually works." She'd deliver these comments with this fake, concerned voice that made me want to scream, as if she was genuinely worried about my sad little existence, while showing off her newest Louis Vuitton handbag that cost more than my monthly rent. The worst part was watching my parents nod along, as if her criticism was completely valid and helpful. But here's what makes this whole story even more satisfying. Our grandfather, Jack, built a construction empire from nothing. He started with a pickup truck, a toolbox, and a willingness to work 16-hour days in any weather. After decades of hard work, wise investments, and treating people fairly, he became the owner of one of Colorado's largest construction companies. He's worth between $8 and $10 million. And he's always been passionate about teaching family values like hard work, saving money, and earning what you deserve through merit, not handouts. Somehow, that lesson only stuck with me. The rest of my family treated my grandfather like their personal ATM. They all lived these completely inflated lifestyles, funded entirely by his generosity, and then had the audacity to look down on me for being unsuccessful and unmotivated. Every year, Grandpa organized this elaborate family Christmas trip to bring everyone together and maintain family bonds. He paid for everything because he believed that family unity was worth any price. Last year's trip was supposed to be at some fancy ski resort in Colorado, and I was looking forward to it. Work had been brutal, and I desperately needed a break from the constant stress. Grandpa had booked everything months in advance because he wanted this trip to be extra special, for reasons I didn't understand at the time. The Christmas trip was planned for a luxury ski resort in Vail that charges $1,200 per night for basic rooms, not including $250 dinners, $350 spa treatments, and lift tickets that cost more than most people spend on groceries in a week. I drove up from Denver after finishing a major project at work on Friday, arriving at the resort around 8 p.m. The place was absolutely ridiculous, in the most ostentatious way possible. Exposed wood beams that probably cost more than my car, natural stonework that looked like it belonged in a museum. There were massive fireplaces with chimneys that could fit a small person inside, and people were walking around in ski gear that easily cost $5,000 per outfit, casually discussing plans for helicopter skiing and private mountain tours. I felt a little underdressed in my normal Columbia winter jacket and basic snow pants, but I figured no one would notice. I was there to spend time with my family, not to compete in some kind of fashion show. I walked up to the front desk with my simple duffel bag, gave the clerk my name, and waited while she typed away at her computer with increasing confusion. She began frowning and typing more aggressively. After more frowning and irritated sighs, she summoned her supervisor, who repeated the process with the same outcome. "I'm sorry, sir, but I don't see any reservation under your name in our system." She offered to try other spellings or a family member's name. That's when I heard Chloe's voice behind me, and I could tell something was wrong simply by her tone. There was this strange theatrical element to it that I remembered from childhood, whenever she was poised to stir up problems. "Oh my gosh, Ethan, you actually made it," she chirped. "I wasn't sure you'd be able to take time off from your small work." She sounded too cheery, like she was putting on a show for an imaginary audience. When I turned around, there she was, in a designer ski outfit that probably cost more than I spent on clothes in a year. A jacket that was clearly custom-fitted, pants with metallic threading, and boots that looked like they belonged in a fashion magazine, not on a real mountain. She had this weird smirk on her face that I recognized from childhood, the exact same expression she'd get right before telling Mom and Dad that I'd allegedly done something wrong to get me in trouble. The front desk staff kept frantically searching their system while other guests began gathering behind me, clearly annoyed by the delay. You could feel the tension growing as rich people in fancy clothing waited for this issue to settle itself. Chloe came closer and remarked, just loud enough for everyone to hear, "How strange that there's no room reserved for you. I'm not sure how it happened." She leaned in, lowering her voice to a whisper which she undoubtedly believed was appropriate. "Actually, Ethan, I had a lengthy talk with Grandpa concerning our sleeping arrangements for this vacation. We both agreed that we only needed rooms for true family members this year." She raised her voice again. "You know, folks who actually give something valuable to family gatherings, rather than simply turning up expecting freebies." My stomach dropped. The ramifications hit me. "What are you talking about, Chloe?" "Grandpa personally invited everyone. Oh, we have the presidential family suite for me, Jason, and our twin sons," she continued, completely ignoring me. "Mom and Dad have a magnificent corner room with a mountain view." She paused theatrically, clearly loving every moment of it. "I believe there wasn't enough space for everyone who wanted to come. You realize how pricey these places are, right?" The lobby had gone utterly quiet, except for the crackling of the fireplace. I peered around to see my parents seated in leather chairs near the main hearth. When I made straight eye contact with them, they both turned away like cowards. Jason was standing near the concierge desk, scrolling through his phone like nothing was happening, and their twin 8-year-old boys were running around the lobby, completely oblivious to the adult drama unfolding around them. Chloe continued her carefully planned performance. "Let's be realistic here. You couldn't afford to reside in a property like this with your small analyst income. Maybe there's a Holiday Inn or Super 8 motel down the mountain somewhere. She actually started giggling while saying this, as if the idea of me staying at a budget hotel was the funniest thing she'd ever imagined. Several other guests were now openly staring at our family drama, and the front desk clerk looked mortified, probably wondering if she should call security. The supervisor was pretending to be engaged with vital papers, while clearly listening to every word of this embarrassing chat. "Chloe, what on earth is going on here?" "Yes. Grandpa personally invited and approved my appearance." "Oh, sweetie." Grandpa understood entirely when I thoroughly described the whole issue to him. "We need to focus on the individuals who genuinely important to our family's future prosperity." She gestured dramatically toward Jason, who still hadn't looked up from his phone. "I mean, Jason's firm just won a $17 million commercial development contract last month. That is actual success. That is the type of accomplishment we should be celebrating and supporting as a family." Chloe had purposefully and meticulously planned this entire scenario to humiliate me in front of complete strangers, just to prove some twisted point about family hierarchy and her perceived superiority. At that precise moment, something clicked in my brain. This wasn't some innocent misunderstanding or computer error. I stood there for about 20 seconds, just processing what was going on, while Chloe looked at my face with obvious satisfaction, probably expecting me to beg for help or make some kind of desperate scene that would embarrass me even more. My parents were still avoiding eye contact, like the cowards they'd always been. Instead of feeling angry or hurt, as Chloe clearly desired, I felt a strange sense of crystal-clear clarity. Jason continued to act as if nothing was going on, and the other hotel guests were becoming increasingly uneasy with the public family breakdown. It was like jigsaw pieces that had been scattered for years suddenly snapping into place to create a picture I'd never seen before. "You know what, Chloe," I said, my voice calm. "You're completely correct about everything." Her confident smile faltered slightly as confusion crossed her face. "I apologize. What did you say?" "You're exactly correct. I should leave this location quickly." I got out my phone and launched a ride-sharing app with purposeful calm. "I wish you and the real family have an absolutely lovely Christmas together." She looked genuinely confused because this clearly wasn't the reaction she had carefully planned for. "Wait, that's it. You're simply giving up without even attempting to resolve this." "Nope. Making a conscious decision based on fresh facts. Have fun explaining to Grandpa tomorrow morning why I'm not attending Christmas breakfast. When I tell Grandpa how improper and theatrical you've been acting in this scenario, he'll totally understand." I turned around one more time and gave her the widest, most sincere smile I'd had in months. "I am very certain he will, Chloe. I am convinced that he will grasp everything correctly." The ride down the mountain gave me plenty of time to think clearly for the first time in years and plan. See, Chloe had made one critical mistake that was about to destroy her entire fake life. She assumed I was still the same powerless little brother she used to pick on when we were kids. She had no idea what kind of position I was in, or what I knew about the family's true financial situation. Here's what Chloe didn't know and why her little stunt was about to backfire spectacularly. First, I'd been assisting Grandpa with his business finances for the past 6 years. Second, I was the one who persuaded him to modernize his record-keeping and transfer everything to secure digital systems. He'd call me whenever he had a question about investments, tax strategies, retirement planning, or financial analysis. I knew more about his money concerns and future plans than anyone else in the family combined. I helped set up his online banking, organized his investment accounts, and digitized decades of paper records. I had legitimate access to financial information that would make Chloe's head spin if she knew what I could see. Third, and most importantly for what was about to happen, Grandpa had been growing increasingly concerned about the family's spending habits and sense of entitlement. He had made several pointed comments over the years about people who live beyond their means and expect handouts instead of working their way through life. And he had expressed deep concern about what would happen to his hard-earned money after he was gone, and whether anyone in the family understood its value. I contacted Grandpa from the airport while waiting for my trip back to Denver. "Ethan, what's wrong?" Shouldn't you be at the resort with everyone else? I told him the truth. No drama, no emotional manipulation, no exaggeration, just the facts. How Chloe had purposefully excluded me from the room reservations. Her specific comments about real family members, the public humiliation in front of other hotel guests, and my parents' cowardly refusal to defend their own son. The quiet on the other end of the line lasted around 45 seconds, which felt like a lifetime. When Grandpa finally spoke again, his voice had transformed from warm and worried to ice-cold and resolute. Well, I believe it is time for certain members of this family to learn about the actual repercussions of their behavior. Grandpa, you don't need to do anything dramatic. I'm okay, actually. I'll just spend Christmas at home. Can Ethan come to my office first thing Monday morning? He asked. I have some extremely serious business concerns to address with you. Bring your laptop and any financial analyzing software you own. Monday morning, I'm sitting in Grandpa's office, which looks like a museum of American business success. Dark wood paneling on every wall, leather chairs that have probably been there since the 1960s, and dozens of awards and photos from 40 years in the construction business. That's when I realized Chloe had just made the biggest mistake of her life. Grandpa, exhausted but resolute, reminded me why he'd been so successful for so many decades. Ethan, he said, I want to know exactly how much money I've given your parents and sister over the years. Every single gift, loan, and emergency payment. Can you assist me in compiling this material into a detailed analysis? This is where my financial analysis skills came in handy in ways I never envisioned. I spent the following week going through bank records, transfer logs, tax documents, canceled checks, and digital payment records. Grandpa gave me complete access to his personal accounts, business accounts, and financial records going back 20 years. And what I discovered was absolutely mind-blowing and worse than I could have imagined. Here's what I uncovered over the last decade. Chloe received $49,000 for her wedding, which she claimed was just enough to cover the basic expenses, but I discovered receipts indicating they spent more than $78,000 in total. She received $32,000 as a down payment gift for their house, followed by another $28,000 2 years later when they decided to upgrade their kitchen with granite countertops and professional appliances. For the past 5 years, she has been receiving $4,000 per month to help with the children's expenses and cost of living adjustments, totaling over $250,000 in direct monthly payments. And there was more. Emergency loans that were never repaid and $43,000 for a business opportunity that never materialized. My parents, who had been working the same system for years, were no better. They had spent $37,000 on various schemes, more than most people's annual car payments, on birthday and Christmas gifts, and probably another $60,000 over the years. They had also funded vacations, jewelry purchases, and furniture allowances. Grandpa paid off their $95,000 mortgage early when they claimed they were struggling with retirement planning. And he's been supplementing their retirement income with $3,500 per month for the past 6 years because their savings were insufficient for the lifestyle they deserved, totaling over $220,000, which included home renovations, medical bills, car payments, insurance premiums, emergency repairs, and unexpected expenses. Over the last decade, these folks had received far over $700,000 in direct handouts, not including smaller gifts, dinners, vacations, or other advantages that are more difficult to assess. Meanwhile, I had asked Grandpa for help only once in my adult life. A $6,000 loan when I was between jobs for 3 months after college, which I paid back with interest in 4 months and never asked for anything else. But here's where the investigation got really interesting and revealed how fake their lifestyle truly was. I decided to do some serious digging into Chloe and Jason's actual financial situation using public records databases that I have access to through my job. I know how to read financial documents, court filings, and business records in ways that most people don't. And what I discovered was absolutely shocking. Their house was mortgaged to the absolute maximum limit. They owed $750,000 on a property that was currently worth around $680,000 in today's market. And both of their luxury cars were leased, meaning they were paying monthly fees for vehicles they would never own. Chloe's credit card debt was completely insane. I discovered at least 14 different accounts with significant balances, totaling more than $100,000. According to public business filings, Jason's company had been struggling for the past 2 years, with 3 major development projects falling through due to financing issues. Remember how Chloe used to brag about his $17 million deal and $420,000 annual income? His biggest commercial client had terminated their contract in September after delays and cost overruns. The business had defaulted on 2 significant construction loans and was essentially operating on borrowed time and credit extensions. They were living a completely fraudulent lifestyle, funded entirely by massive debt and Grandpa's monthly payments. When I presented Grandpa with all of this information in a detailed written report, he just sat there quietly for about 15 minutes, slowly flipping through the documents with increasing rage. Without that $4,000 per month, he murmured, they'd be declaring bankruptcy within 60 days. Finally, he glanced up at me with a unique face and simply said, "Very intriguing. Very fascinating indeed. I think it's time for some people to learn what real consequences feel like." 3 weeks after the ski resort incident, Grandpa called a mandatory family meeting at his house, telling everyone it was to discuss important financial and estate planning issues, and that attendance was absolutely required for anyone who wanted to be included in his will. I arrived early to assist him in preparing what would be the most satisfying presentation of my entire life. He had printed out everything: bank statements, transfer records, loan documents, property records, business filings, credit reports, all neatly organized in folders with each family member's name written on the front in his careful handwriting. Chloe arrived 25 minutes late in her Tesla Model S, dressed in another ridiculously expensive outfit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. She appeared genuinely annoyed that she had to be there, as if it was an inconvenience to her busy schedule of spending other people's money and posting about it online. Jason appeared uneasy from the moment he walked in. I believe he was beginning to realize their financial situation was deteriorating. My parents arrived as if nothing had happened at Christmas, with no apology, acknowledgement, or explanation for their cowardly behavior. Just business as usual. They probably believed this meeting was about raising their monthly allowance or discussing inheritance specifics. Grandpa began the meeting quite formally. "I've asked everyone here today because I've been conducting a full evaluation of my financial support for this family over the last 15 years. Ethan assisted me in gathering some really eye-opening material, and I believe it is time we have a truly honest debate about money, entitlement, and family values." He handed out the folders with theatrical precision, and I watched Chloe's face as she opened hers and began reading the numbers laid out in black and white. The color literally drained from her cheeks as she realized the scope of what she was looking at. Grandpa continued in his most businesslike tone. "I want each of you to carefully analyze those statistics and then explain to me why you feel you're entitled to this amount of continued financial support." Chloe instantly went into full victim mode. "Grandpa, raising children is really costly these days. Jason and I work very hard to provide for our family, and with the economy being so unstable and unpredictable." "Chloe!" Grandpa's voice pierced through her whimpering like a scalpel through butter. "According to these paperwork, your husband allegedly makes $420,000 each year. Please explain in detail why you require an additional $45,000 per year from me to maintain your lifestyle." "Well, the house payment is really high because we wanted the boys to grow up in a good neighborhood, and they have activities and sports, and we have other necessary expenses that you wouldn't understand." "You decided to buy a house that you couldn't afford," Grandpa retorted, his voice unwavering. "You decided to lease fancy automobiles rather than purchase dependable transportation. You chose to enroll your children in pricey private programs rather than great public ones. These were your purposeful decisions, made with the expectation that I would continue to finance your lifestyle choices eternally." My parents tried to intervene and deflect attention. "Dad, you know how much we appreciate all you've done for us over the years, but retirement planning is becoming increasingly hard due to inflation and medical bills. You retired at 62 knowing that I would augment your salary eternally, Grandpa shot back. You made no attempt to save enough for retirement because you expected I would manage all of your financial duties. You regarded my generosity as an entitlement rather than a gift. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife, and Chloe began to fear as she realized things weren't going as planned. Grandpa, what are you trying to convey here? Are you threatening us? I'm saying that, effective immediately, all financial support to this family is being permanently terminated. The eruption was instantaneous, expected, and truly enjoyable to see. Chloe began her fake weeping act, with crocodile tears and theatrical wailing. My parents began feverishly talking over each other about their limited income, medical expenditures, and retirement security, while Jason sat there looking like he wanted to disappear through the floor. But Grandpa wasn't done delivering his verdict. Furthermore, I am profoundly disappointed and personally insulted by how Ethan was handled during our Christmas trip. The purposeful exclusion and public humiliation were utterly wrong, and it demonstrated precisely who you have become when you believe no one is watching. Chloe's phony tears quickly turned into genuine rage. This is about him. Are you really doing this because of him? He is a grown man. He should be able to care for himself without relying on Grandpa like a small baby. Yes, Chloe. He should be able to care for himself, and he does, Grandpa said, his voice ringing with pride. He has never asked me for continued assistance. He paid off his college loans by his own efforts. He lives within his means. He handles family members with decency and respect. You might want to think about learning from his example rather than ridiculing it. Oh, please. He is a dull loser who spends his days staring at spreadsheets and has no social life. Chloe scoffed. Jason earns 3 times his current salary. We're the prosperous members of this family. We are the ones who matter. That's when Grandpa brought out one more folder, a small smile playing on his lips. Actually, Chloe, speaking of Jason's tremendous success. He glanced directly at Jason, who had turned extremely pale and was sweating. Ethan, could you please explain what your financial study indicated concerning the commercial real estate industry? This is probably when any good person should have felt terrible for them, but I didn't. Not even a little. They'd been expecting this for years. I opened my laptop and pulled up the extensive financial study I'd prepared just for this moment. Well, based on public records, business filings, and financial documents, Jason's company is essentially bankrupt and has been operating on borrowed time for months. Jason's complexion turned from pale to green as he realized his fictitious empire was about to collapse in front of everyone. Ethan, you had absolutely no right to investigate my private business affairs, he yelled, finally finding his voice. I actually had every right, I shot back, calm and collected. This is all publicly available information from state corporate registrations and court filings. Your firm has defaulted on 4 large construction loans totaling more than $2.5 million during the last 2 years. Your largest commercial client terminated the contract in September, alleging delays, cost overruns, and quality difficulties. You haven't closed a development project for more than $65,000 since last summer. Chloe was gazing back and forth between me and Jason, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. The fabricated world she'd created on social media was collapsing in real time. I proceeded with deliberate precision. Your personal finances are worse than your corporate condition. Your house is around $85,000 underwater on its mortgage. You owe $100,000 in credit card debt across 14 separate accounts. Your car leasing payments alone cost $2,400 per month, which is more than most families pay for housing. The quiet in the room was terrible, and you could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the corner. Grandpa spoke with apparent delight. Ethan, what did your investigation indicate regarding Chloe's personal spending habits? According to credit card bills, bank records, and social media activity analysis, I stated, I believe Chloe spends around $5,200 each month on clothes, accessories, beauty treatments, spa visits, and entertainment. That is more than double what the average American family spends on housing. And it excludes the money she spends on vacations and luxury experiences. Chloe eventually lost control. You're an absolute psychopath. Who gives you the authority to look into my personal life like a creepy stalker? This is insane. You did, Chloe, I said, my voice steady. When you chose to disgrace me in public and bar me from family gatherings. When you made it apparent that you think I am inferior to your purportedly successful spouse. When you treated me like garbage in the presence of strangers. Actions have consequences, and you're going to discover what those repercussions look like. Grandpa rose up slowly, with the dignity of a man who had established an empire through hard labor. I believe we've covered all we need to talk about today. You all have some extremely important decisions to make regarding your future. Ethan, could you kindly remain behind for a few minutes? I have something crucial to talk with you in private. My parents and Chloe's family filed out of the home in full commotion. Chloe was yelling about how unjust everything was and how I had wrecked the family with my erratic behavior. Jason looked like he was ready to vomit, and my parents were completely devastated. After they left, Grandpa sat down and smiled warmly at me for the first time in weeks. Ethan, I've been thinking a lot about updating my will and estate planning lately, he said. And my estate planning attorney believes it's definitely time to make some very significant changes to reflect my current understanding of family values and responsibility. 9 months have passed since that family meeting, and the results have been absolutely spectacular, beyond my wildest dreams. In April, Jason's company filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. They lost their house to foreclosure and had to move into a small 2-bedroom rental apartment in a much less desirable part of town. Both luxury cars were repossessed within 8 weeks because they couldn't make the lease payments. And Chloe had to get her first real job in more than a decade. She's working at a department store for $17 per hour and hating every minute of it. Her social media has gone completely dark because she can't afford the lifestyle she used to fake. The twins had to transfer from their expensive private school to public school, which Chloe constantly complained about until she realized no one cared about her problems anymore. My parents had to sell their house and downsize to a tiny 1-bedroom condo in a retirement community that they could actually afford. And my father came out of retirement to work as a part-time cashier at a hardware store. My mom is working the register at a grocery store. They're both completely miserable and constantly stressed about money for the first time in decades. But here's the very greatest part that makes this entire tale perfect. They all started calling me, urgently pleading for aid. It began with my parents, approximately 3 months after the meeting. Ethan, dear, we're really sorry about what occurred over Christmas. We should have guarded you from Chloe. We now understand how wrong we were to treat you in that manner. Could you please talk to Grandpa for us? We're definitely suffering with these bills, and we're not sure what to do. I told them I'd consider assisting if they sent me a thorough handwritten letter recognizing how they had treated me over the years and accepting full responsibility for their actions and decisions. Jason contacted me around 2 months ago. Look, Guy, I understand we started out on the wrong foot, and Chloe deeply regrets how she handled the Christmas scenario. She feels awful about everything. Is there anything you could do to aid us? Perhaps a little loan could help us get back on our feet. I vow to repay you with interest as soon as business gets up again. I laughed out loud and hung up on him right away. But the most pleasant call came from Chloe herself approximately 6 weeks ago, which I taped since I knew it would happen. Please, Ethan, she sobbed. I am aware that I made a serious mistake. I was utterly mistaken about everything. I was terrible to you and I sincerely apologize, but I'm in a bad situation here. The boys continually asking why we had to move, why Mommy has to work now, why we can't go on vacation, and why their friends can't come to our apartment. I will do anything. I will openly apologize on social media. I will accept that I was incorrect about everything. I'll tell everyone you were correct. Just help us go back to normal. Chloe, I said, my voice quiet but firm. I only have one question for you, and I want you to consider carefully before you respond. When you excluded me from the hotel reservation and told everyone it was solely for the genuine family, did you consider how it would make me feel as your brother? There was complete quiet for almost 30 seconds. Did you think that I was your brother, and that I deserved fundamental respect and decency, regardless of how much money I earned? Ethan, I was just trying to— No, Chloe, I cut her off. You humiliated me because you considered me weak and pitiful. You assumed I needed you more than you needed me. You believed I was always available as a backup plan. You were completely wrong on every count. Please, Ethan, I am literally begging you here. I'll go down on my knees if you want. Do you know what? Continued. You're totally correct. You're begging me. And do you know how this makes me feel? It gives me believe that maybe there is some true justice in the world after all. What do you think about my revenge? Was it too harsh, or did they get exactly what they deserved? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.